Welcome, everybody. Uh, Feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're tuning in from in the chat while we give people a few minutes before we start. We'll give this another minute or so before we start. But those of you who've just joined, we're introducing ourselves and telling us where you're coming from in the chat. Welcome. Looks like folks are coming from all over. This is great. I love seeing all these towns. A little bit longer, and then we will start. All right, time to start. Welcome, everybody, to Is It Time to Re-Insulate Your Attic and Basement? I'm joined by my colleagues, Matt Sharp and Juliana Bortz, who are weatherization experts and will be leading today's presentation. Matt will be running the presentation, and Juliana will be in the background answering your questions as we go. Next slide, Matt. Your video and audio have been turned off, but feel free to type your questions in the chat. We'll be answering them throughout. If you need accessibility features, you can click on the icon with the three dots to access those. And this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the video and slides afterwards. We know that some people have questions that are specific to their home, and we may not be able to answer everyone in the next hour. We will provide contact information to follow up if we don't get to answer all of the questions today. Next slide, Matt. Button Up is Vermont's annual campaign to help Vermonters prepare for winter. It's supported by a broad range of statewide and regional organizations that work with communities to help residents reduce their energy costs through weatherization and heating electrification. Next slide, Matt. Efficiency Vermont is one of the primary button-up partners sponsoring the campaign and this webinar. Next slide. So today we will go over what weatherization is, the components of your home that affect weatherization, resources and available rebates, and we will end this presentation with a question and answer segment, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. And I will now turn this presentation over to Matt.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. Good afternoon, everybody. I am going to be going through a lot of slides, so I'll try to move fairly quickly, but please post your questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time at the end to tackle them. I'll get right started with talking about what is weatherization. And when we talk about buttoning up, we're talking about weatherizing. We're talking about making a home more resilient against the forces of weather, whether it's hot or cold, wind, water, snow. And it's important to consider health, comfort, and lowering your energy bills as part of weatherization, or why you might want to do weatherization in your home. One of the analogies we like to use to explain how heat moves through a building, is to talk about how it affects you, your comfort when you're trying to bundle yourself up when you go outside. You want to have an insulation layer on, which is usually a sweater or a fleece or something that's going to be warm. But as you all know, you walk outside on a windy day in winter, that insulation layer, that sweater, is going to allow the wind to blow right through it, and you will be cold, regardless of how much insulation you have around your body. And that's why it's important to have a air barrier around you, or a Gore-Tex layer, or this is what air sealing is. Air sealing is enclosing that insulation in an airtight layer so the wind can't blow through it. And when you have both of them combined together, you have your insulated assembly or your thermal boundary or your building envelope. And that leads to the comfort and savings that you'd benefit from by doing weatherization. Vermont's older homes look a lot like these two pictures on the right. There's not much control over where energy or cold air goes to and from outside. You have hot summers that might make some areas of your building uncomfortable. And sometimes the air quality can be really poor because you have either exposed dirt floors, or the air moving through your house is bringing with it some contaminants from whatever's inside your walls or ceilings. So these two pictures are good examples of what your home might look like if you need weatherization. The picture on the left is a basement or crawl space, and the picture on the right is what your attic might look like. And behind all that insulation, there very well could be a lot of air leaks that are blowing past that. So the sweater might be there, but your air barrier, your windbreaker, your Gore-Tex layer might not be there. So with a retrofit, with some weatherization, you can achieve a tighter envelope, control comfort, improve comfort, lower your energy bills, create a more durable building by managing indoor air quality and moisture, and also attending to any combustion safety problems that might exist. And so the pictures on the right, you have a basement or crawl space on the left that has a nice ground cover vapor barrier over the dirt. There's insulation up the walls, and in some cases you might need to improve the structure of that space while you're down there. And then the picture on the right, you can't see much because it's all buried in insulation, but all the air sealing had been done before adding that insulation. And we'll get into a few more examples about that. The building envelope. This term is used a lot when talking about where your insulation is. And what's really important is that there is a continuous line around the space that you're trying to keep warm or cool in the summer, and that continuous line is not interrupted by transitions from wall to ceiling, or from one part of a ceiling to another part of the ceiling, and down over any porches or bump outs in your house. You want that thermal envelope to be continuous and contiguous, so all transitions are sealed. An example of what that might look like, the picture on the left is a knee wall attic space that has plenty of sweater. There's lots of insulation there, but it still was having cold drafts and uncomfortable rooms on the other side. And so the solution is to have that air barrier installed, which the picture on the right, you can see they actually moved the insulation from the original location to the roof, and then put this air barrier of foam board insulation. They taped all the seams. They air sealed with canned foam every transition or penetration. And then even down here at the very edge, the eave, they blocked the transition down to the wall below this. So it's this comprehensive approach to the building envelope that really allows weatherization to be effective. A little bit about air movement to some basic understanding. temperature stack effect. The image on the left is showing how warm air rises. So we have this heating system in our house, so we're warming the air. It's pushing up towards the top of the building, and that is putting pressure on the top of the building to hold that air in. And a lot of air, warm air, escapes into an attic or outside at the top of the building. And then because the pressure is balanced, air comes in towards the lower part of the building where there's a negative pressure. And you have this chimney effect or stack effect where cold air comes in down low, gets warmed, rises up, and leaves the top of the building. The other pressure we're all aware of is wind. So wind blows on one side of the house, and then it blows out the other side. And this is very intermittent whenever the wind is blowing, whereas temperature and stack effect is constant throughout cold weather. And then the third example on the right is mechanicals. If you have big exhaust fans or dryers that exhaust air, those are our forces that are going to suck air out of the house, and makeup air will come in through leaks and cracks in your building. And so that's another driver of air movement. And if we use that theory of stack effect, we can look to a building cutout like this and point out some areas that are commonly leaky. The warm air will leave where the red or orange arrows are, and the cold air might sneak in where the purple and blue arrows are. So you have these leakage at door and window frames, at the foundation perimeter, where the wall and the roof meets the top of the walls. Knee walls can be horrendous areas for air leakage. And then you have behind tubs and showers, or behind drop ceilings or soffits, can also be large areas of leakage that you'd want to tackle. In all of these areas, all these little leaks might only be a few square inches each, but if you add them all up, you end up having the equivalent of a window open in your house all winter long if you have a house that's not been air sealed professionally. What this might look like on the outside is you could see snow melt in the top right of that roof in this picture. You have snow melt from heat loss going into an attic. The rest of the roof is in the same amount of sun. It has not melted the snow off the roof. So that's a telltale sign. And then icicles are another telltale sign. The heat loss from the house melts the snow on the roof. That melted snow drips down to the edge of the roof where it's cold and then refreezes. And then you create these icicles. It's a common sign of heat loss. Air tightness can be measured. A tool called a blower door can test the building's air tightness. This will also allow the contractor or the auditor to find leakage areas. You put the building under a pressure with this fan, and you can walk around and you can feel leaks coming around where the wall meets the floor, or around the window casings, or around the attic hatch. And you can look to identify leaks so that you can seal them up. And then during a project or after a project, this tool can be used to verify and confirm that leaks have been sealed, so that you can be sure you're ready to insulate, or you can be sure the work that was done to a high quality. You can also see air leakness by using an infrared camera. And in this picture, the infrared camera is being used at the same time the blower door is being used. And so you see those little fans of dark purple. The dark purple is cold, represents cold, and then the warm is the orange. So the blower door on is going to pull cold air in on a cool day, and you can see that with the camera. You can see how it fans out at the bottom of the wall. You can see how at the bottom of that window in this top right corner, air is getting pulled in because the weather stripping is not very good. The chair rail looks to be pretty leaky here too, where the change from the air barrier that's here, which is usually drywall, to the chair well was not sealed well. So you're getting a lot of leakage there. Infrared camera is a great tool to be able to see if your walls or your ceilings are leaky or poorly insulated. And all this adds up to prioritizing where to go after the weatherization project. A lot of this will depend on what condition your house is in now. Commonly, the top of the building is the first place to look. One of the reasons is because that's where a lot of the warm air is pushing its way out. But another one of the reasons is because that's where you have access, so you don't have to disturb interior finishes. And so there's then ABCs of weatherization. The A is for attic, the B is for basement, and then the C is for the rest of the conditioned space. So the basement's usually second, and then you start focusing on the more difficult weatherized places like walls and windows. A typical attic air sealing project might look a little bit like this, where you first want to find any large openings, potentially from a drop ceiling or the soffit above some cabinets in your kitchen. Seal those off from the attic side. And then every partition wall that separates rooms that are on the top level of the house that has an attic on the above the ceiling, want to go around and seal all those top plates. Every lineal foot on both sides of a top plate is where air can come up the interior wall and escape up into the attic. So the picture on the right here is a contractor sealing the tops of the partition wall and the electric wire penetration that's coming through that top of that wall. Then, after the air sealing is taking place, is when it's time to insulate to the level that you can. Insulation is often referred to as the R value. It's the most common unit of measure to reference insulation. It's the resistance to heat flow. So R value does, the higher the number, the larger resistance to heat flow it has. But be careful, because R value, when air leaks past it, can be diminished from whatever it's rated at. Fiberglass, very common insulation type. It's about R3 an inch or so. You do need to really be careful and fit it well. Crammed fiberglass and crunched up small spaces does not work very well. And fiberglass is not airtight. So you really do need to have that air barrier to keep air from moving through it. Mineral rock wool becoming a more common product to use in new construction, but there's also lots of old rock wool in buildings, maybe in an attic or in the walls, that is kind of a loose fill type of material. About R4 per inch. It can be fireproof and tolerate high temperatures better than some other products. Loose fill cellulose or dense packed cellulose. This product is recycled newspaper. It can be blown into small crevices or into large open attics. If it's loose blown, it will settle, and it also is not an air barrier, so it needs to be air sealed prior to adding the insulation. And then if it's dense packed, it can be a pretty good air barrier, and it will not settle if it's installed to the correct depth, density. Some of the older installs of cellulose did settle, and it's got a little bit of a bad reputation for that. But the newly installed stuff installed at the right density will not settle. Rigid foams are very common to use. They can be cut to fit. They could be put across any wood framing members to insulate the wood as well. And they are a very good air barrier when sealed around the edges and seams. And so using a rigid foam board along with one of the other products that's not an air barrier can be a good combination. And you can see they come in a variety of flavors and different R values per inch. They're all very effective. Spray foam is another product that is commonly installed. This comes in two varieties: closed cell, which is a medium to high density foam, about R7 per inch, and this is a vapor retarder, so it keeps not only air from moving through it, but it keeps vapor from moving through it. And then there's open cell foam, which is a little bit lower R value per inch, is vapor open. Both provide excellent air sealing, but the open cell being vapor open is something you would really need to consider in whatever you're doing to make sure that no problems are created. You might find older insulation in your house. Vermiculite is the top of the list to be aware that it likely contains asbestos. There's a picture of vermiculite on the right side. It's this sort of, it looks like perlite, if you know what perlite is. And it's loose fill, it's very granular. It's been mined, and in the mine that mainly came from the mine, it was contaminated with asbestos. So the vermiculite itself might not be, but the mine it came from had traces of asbestos in it. And then there's lots of other types. You might see wood shavings or sawdust. You could see newspapers stuffed in places. Sometimes brick is put into the walls before the plaster. There's a large variety of what you might find. Windows. Everybody knows windows are a cold spot. If you really want to huddle your whole family next to the window all winter, then you might want to consider new windows so you can comfortably do that. It's a common complaint to have windows be cold, and really, it is glass. Even the best windows are still much lower R value than your walls or your ceiling might be. There are things you can do to upgrade your windows without replacing them, because replacement windows can be very expensive. Options include tuning up your old windows, adding weather strips, making sure it is tight when it closes and can be latched, so it can be latched tight to the weather strip. If the old windows are really in too poor a shape, or you might want to consider this regardless, but interior window inserts are a good option to tighten up an old window and have a little bit warmer surface to be next to. Lowy exterior storm windows are another option, and putting on the exterior has the advantage of protecting the old window from storm, water, wind. And then obviously new windows is the ideal situation, but again, very expensive. Indoor air quality. Ventilation is a very important piece of the home. It can help manage moisture. It can help manage combustion byproducts. If you have a gas oven, for example, you'd want to ventilate that. It can just help the air be more fresh. It can ventilate carbon dioxide from people breathing. It can ventilate odors, radon, VOCs, and other pollutants. A lot of reasons to have good ventilation in your home. One of them is to manage moisture. And so window condensation is very common. When it gets super cold, even the best windows have some condensation on them. But when it's mildly cold, you wouldn't want to see a lot of condensation. And that could be related to how high the relative humidity is in your house. So ventilation can help lower your indoor relative humidity, which lowers the amount of condensation you might find happening on your windows or within your walls or ceilings. And this is the condition you really want to avoid. And ventilation can play a part in that by keeping your moisture levels lower, so that you don't have a lot of condensation. Lots of other factors go into having a situation like this on the right, but ventilation can help. And when you do add mechanical ventilation, it does need to be properly installed. These two pictures show I don't know if it's a bath fan or a dryer vent, that's just venting into an attic space. And one might think, oh, it's an attic space, it's vented itself, that's no problem. Well, when you're dumping so much high humidity air into that space, that high humidity air condenses on the cold roof deck surface, and you can see in this case it's growing mildew and mold, a thing we all want to avoid. So that needs to be vented all the way to the outside, all exhaust fans all the way to the outside. Combustion equipment. Um, Equipment that burns fuel, your furnaces, your boilers, your water heaters, your wood stoves, they they must be vented to the outside. Now, some are what's called direct vent, where they have dedicated vent supply air coming in and a dedicated exhaust vent going outside, and it's not open to the building at all. It's a closed system. But many are what's called chimney vented or atmospherically vented, and that uses air from the house. And then the chimney drafts because the warm air from its vent is buoyant and rises up through the chimney. And that's not a very strong force. And so you must be sure that there is adequate air for combustion and that the chimney drafts, because drafts are very lazy. They can be overcome by powerful fans, or if you have a tight house, even a not so powerful fan can overcome the lazy draft of a chimney. And that's what's called backdrafting. And so you want to be sure that your appliances are not backdrafting either currently or after a weatherization project is completed and you tighten up the house. And then a protection, just always have working smoke and CO detectors. This is a baseline understanding by many that these can save lives. These can alert you of any problem that is currently happening, and take that seriously and make sure you have working CO and smoke detectors. Some examples of ventilation systems. On the left, we have an exhaust only ventilation system where there's just a fan or maybe two fans. This could be a bath fan that are just constantly or on a programmable timer pulling air out of the house. You constantly pull air out of the house, whether makeup air has to come from somewhere. We already made sure it's not going to come from the chimney, so it's going to come through leaks and cracks around your windows or what other leaks and cracks still exist. This can help dry out a building, can help some with indoor air quality, but the image on the left shows a balanced ventilation system. If you're building a new house, this is definitely something that's kind of a no-brainer at this point. An existing house can be a lot more difficult to retrofit into, but it does allow you to supply fresh air to bedrooms where you want fresh air and exhaust stale air from areas like bathrooms and kitchens where you where you want to exhaust. Um, Definitely the best quality ventilation you can have is a system like this, um, if feasible, worth considering, especially if you have a tight house. Now, we often get the question of, well, why should we go through this whole weatherization business to tighten up our house just to have to put in some ventilation to ventilate the house? Um, it's a really good question. It's a very real question. Um, and the motto we like to hold is you build tight and you ventilate right. And the reason this is preferred is that it gives you control of where the warm, moist air is going. And in the case of a balanced system, where the fresh air is coming from, uncontrolled warm air escaping can cause condensation problems, indoor air, indoor air quality concerns, and leads to high energy waste. So by controlling the air, by sealing unwanted leaks, you can increase your comfort, and exhausting warm, moist air through a dedicated ventilation system, you can reduce your overall energy use and still ensure a base level of indoor air quality. So that is really kind of why building tight and ventilating right ends up being a better solution than just having unwanted air leakage. And they could definitely go into more depth about that, but we'll leave it there for now. So there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of potential pitfalls. There's a lot of things to consider when you're weatherizing your building. And wouldn't it be nice if there was a contractor that knew all that stuff? And there are contractors who are trained and certified. They can assess your building envelope improvements, both for air leakage and insulation needs. They can assess whether the building needs ventilation, how to improve that ventilation and install it correctly. And it can test your combustion appliances for CO to make sure they're not making CO. And they can test them to make sure they draft even when all the other exhaust fans are on, so that you have a safe and healthy home after you're done weatherizing. And so the Efficiency Excellence Network is a badge that is something to recognize out in the market, and contractors that are participating in that network are ones that that know the weatherization top 4 bullets there. And I think with that, I am handing it back to Mary Catherine.
Matt, we
Thank you
actually
so much,
have a
Matt.
question in the chat that I thought we'd take a second to answer while we're still in the weatherization section.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations on how to air seal around a metal bestos wood stove chimney as it penetrates the ceiling/attic area?
Yeah, that is a very tricky place to air seal. And so usually with chimneys, what the standard protocol is to use a sheet metal draft stop that is sealed to the chimney and to the surrounding air barrier on the other side with a high temperature caulking. So you're capping that opening that's currently just wide open, and using a fireproof, metal draft stop. If the chimney manufacturer has specific requirements that say you can't do that, then you need to follow what they call for. And maybe you can't seal the whole thing with fire rated caulk, but you could at least put the metal draft stop down there as tight as you can get it to the chimney. But definitely follow manufacturer's requirements if they have some.
Great, thank you. That's all our questions we have so far in the chat right now.
Great. Thank you both. I know that was a lot. So our next piece is to talk about what should you do if you think it is time to upgrade your home. Next slide, Matt. Your first thing to do is to call us. Efficiency Vermont can help you figure out your next steps, the rebates you might be interested in, and other details. If you're looking for a deeper understanding of your home, you can schedule a virtual home energy visit, which is a 90-minute one-on-one walkthrough of your home with an Efficiency Vermont energy consultant. They will answer your questions, look for places your home is losing energy, and suggest improvements. If you're a Vermont Gas Systems customer, call them and ask about a home energy assessment, and they will bring a professional energy auditor to help you determine how to make your home more energy efficient. All right, next slide, please. One of the rebates available to you is Efficiency Vermont's Home Performance with Energy Star, which is up to $9,500 back on a weatherization project, dependent on household income. It involves comprehensive insulation and air sealing with attention to what Matt was talking about with the health.
Hold on, can I pause you? We're on the wrong slide. We need to, Matt, can you push us forward to the home performance slide? We're staring at next step still. Thank you.
Sorry about
that. So what you're going to do is give us a call and figure out where to start. but it does require working with an efficiency excellence network contractor who have been trained on incorporating health and safety into their weatherization projects. Next slide, please. If you are income eligible, you can receive free weatherization services through the Weatherization Assistance Program, which is administered by Vermont's community action agencies, and you can see them on the map there. Eligibility is based on income and determined by your regional weatherization agency, and you can call your local weatherization agency to get started. Okay, next slide, please. So Vermont Gas and Burlington Electric have their own weatherization programs for customers in their service territories. For Burlington Electric, that's Burlington, and for Vermont Gas, that's Chittenden, Franklin, and Addison counties. There are also a few months left to qualify for home energy tax credits, and you can visit our blog and YouTube channel for a recorded webinar with more details on that. And finally, if you just want to quickly seal up drafts to be more comfortable this winter, check out Efficiency Vermont's DIY rebate to get $100 back. Next slide. There are also weatherization incentives available for small businesses and rental properties, so definitely check that out if you think you might qualify. And finally, next slide. There are financing options to help with investing in your home. The home energy loan is a low or no interest loan for most households through participating lenders, which are Eastrise and Cornerstone. And we also have WRAP on bill financing, which can be paid directly through your utility bill, and the financing for that can be structured so that the amount you save on your energy bill is greater than the monthly payment. And so you can see savings right away, and you can learn more about that at efficiencyvermont.com/financing. Next slide, please. And if you want to go deeper into buttoning up your home, here's our schedule of upcoming webinars. They are every Wednesday in October. And on October 22nd, we'll go more in depth on next steps for starting a project and details on rebates and financing options. And on October 15th and 29th, we'll be discussing heating systems and heat pumps. And as a reminder, register for these webinars to get a recording of the presentation. You don't have to watch them live at noon. You just need to sign up to get the recording. And you can register for webinars at buttonupvermont.org. Thank you for joining. Next slide, please. And actually go one more slide over to please take a short survey and to give us some feedback on this presentation. We want to make sure we are providing you helpful, useful information that you feel like you can use. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your questions and attention today. Do we have any questions now that might be we can answer for you?
We don't currently have anything in the chat, but if anyone has any questions that are stirring based off of what we talked about today, please feel free to throw them in the chat right now, and we've got ample time to answer them live for you guys.
And I do notice a little commentary about wood stove makeup air in the chat, and it's a very good comment made that yes, new wood stoves now have an air intake. I think you have to buy it as a kit that bolts to the back of the stove, and you can supply air directly to the wood stove. You still want to be a little bit careful with having a very tight house and big exhaust fans. Like if you had a kitchen exhaust fan in a very tight house, when you open that door to feed the fire, you could still backdraft that wood stove. So good point in the chat, and definitely something to consider along with all your other combustion appliances.
Do have a few other questions in the chat, some of which I can't answer. how easy is it to find an installation contractor in Addison County? Uh, and is it really too late in the season to get a contractor in 2025?
So I can answer some of that, or at least try. So there is a find a contractor link on our webpage, Find a Pro, for the home performance program. And the home performance program is the one that has the up to $9,500 rebates for income eligible folks. You can put your zip code in there, and it'll give you a list of contractors who are in close proximity to you. Now, whether they can do the work by the end of the year is definitely a tight time frame at this point. But the good news is the rebates are not going away at the end of the year. So the rebates will persist, and you can do this project in January, or February, or March, April, and still see those same rebates. The federal tax credits do go away at the end of this year. It's a relatively small tax credit compared to what our insulation rebates are, but it's still money that is going away at the end of the year.
Thank you, Matt. And we did have somebody ask if we could put back up the slide about the free weatherization with the weatherization assistance so they can, because I think there's some good uh, voicemails on that, emails on that. Great. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank
and
you,
Anna just put in the
Juliana, for
chat
answering
the
that in the chat.
DCF. Yeah.
Great. All right. Do we have any other questions? Oh, we had somebody ask about a presentation that includes air sealing details, such as connecting a wall to a ceiling or roof, and what those construction details would look like, what to keep and in what order, floor rim to exterior wall sealing, etc. And what is the difference between WRB and air barrier?
So I can answer that. So as far as presentations, you can always check our events page on our website, and you can see there are many trainings that we put on for a variety of different trades. The level of detail you mentioned is, I don't know if it's exactly covered in one of those trainings, but we are also available for these home energy visits that were mentioned, or technical assistance if you want to call in and talk into the details like that. So just reach out and we'll help you as best we can. Oh, the difference between a WRB and an air barrier. A WRB is a weather resistive barrier. That is primarily something that protects you from rain. So something like an exterior house wrap might be a WRB. That may or may not be detailed as an air barrier, depending on how it was installed. So if you seal a WRB on all the seams and edges, you can make it an air barrier. But the typical application of just stapling that up on a wall is not a very effective air barrier.
We had a question come in that is, I had a local foam contractor come out this morning for estimate to insulate basement and crawl space. When should I contact Efficiency Vermont about rebates? I can speak to this one for you of make sure your contractor is an Efficiency Excellent Network contractor with Efficiency Vermont. And then if they are, they have access to our Home Performance with Energy Star program we reviewed earlier that provides rebates for weatherization. And they'll take the lead on submitting everything for you for our weatherization rebates at Efficiency Vermont. You're not responsible for submitting any application. It's all with your contractor. So I encourage you to make sure you're working with an EEN contractor and discuss with them that you're interested in rebates and what are next steps, and they can help you through the process.
And if they're not an EEN contractor, you could encourage them to contact us and join. We're always looking for more contractors, because there was a chat about why is it so hard? And it's like just like finding any contractor these days, like the supply is not as not equal to the demand. And so yeah, we need more contractors in all the trades.
Yes. We have somebody ask they have an open chimney with a cap, but they're not ready financially to install a wood stove in the fireplace. How can they seal the chimney opening?
So the chimney is already in place, assuming the chimney is sealed where it penetrates through the air barrier properly. You're just talking about sealing the opening that's just waiting for a wood stove to get installed. They make metal plates you can get them at the hardware store. Just make sure it's like weather stripped so that it can be tight, and place that over the bottom of the chimney. It can be stuffed with any variety of things and taped if you didn't mind the way it looked, as long as it's not in use.
And good if you are looking to get a wood stove, we do have rebates. You should call us to make sure eligibility, but we do have wood stove rebates.
And the comment in the chat, there's inflatable chimney pillows as well. Absolutely. Those are especially good if you have an open fireplace and you don't use it very often or at all. Those can be just constant heat losers, and you could get these inflatable chimney pillows that you put in there and you blow up and they seal the opening. Those are great for open fireplaces.
Anna, do you mind putting the survey link again in the chat just so folks can click on it? We're aiming for a good response rate on these, so please fill it out. Would the chimney pillows qualify for the DIY $100 rebate?
Good question.
I don't know. Worth call us if our customer service folks have every piece of information at their fingertips. So if you want to know if something is eligible or you're curious about a project, give us a call. Our customer service people are excellent and just can answer your questions. All right, it looks like questions have tapered off, so I think we can end this workshop 12 minutes early. Thank you, everybody, and please do fill out that survey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.